There's a story of two caterpillars crawling on the limb of a tree, and they see a butterfly ahead, and one looks up and says, "You will never get me up in one of those things." I think sometimes that our human beingness looks up, if you will, to our spirit beingness and says, "You will never get me up into an expression of my divinity." That there's just, there's a part of us that thinks that we somehow know that there's more potential than we currently are accessing, currently are embodying and demonstrating. But do you ever find yourself like that caterpillar looking up at the butterfly saying, "I just can't yet see myself there"? I know that we all do. And so, we all have the choice to consciously every day go through life or grow through life. There's been something within me from the time I was a kid that I just somehow knew that we were born to grow through life, that we're meant to assimilate and gather and learn and acquire knowledge and then build upon that knowledge. Like we had to master and understand the law of gravity before the Wright brothers, as we claim in North Carolina, then discovered and began to harness the law of aerodynamics. And so it is in our life that we're constantly growing, and that as long as we are here, if the infinite is infinite, then we have never arrived. As long as we're in human form, there is still more to be experienced and expressed. And that doesn't come from a place of being needy, of feeling incomplete. It may, in the early stages of our life, it may in aspects of our life, but ideally we reach a point where I call more the magnificent one revealing and expressing. That there's more of us to be revealed, just like that caterpillar somehow knows, yes, I will one day open up my wings and fly. So 2016, this year, the theme that has come to me for us is, let me see what it is. I know it like the back of my hand. Is freedom to soar. It's living an inspired life, freedom to soar, living an inspired life. And what does that really mean? So I've been guided to start this year. Last week we, of course, had a New Year's ceremony. So today begins a 4-week series that will go through the month of January. The 4-week series is titled "The 4 Elements of God Revealed in You." And so we want to look at that for a few minutes today, and that'll lead us into this white stone ceremony. 4. First of all, the number 4, some things to consider. In essence, there are 4 quadrants in a whole. So symbolically, 4 is considered an aspect of the whole, that the qualities of the whole are revealed in all the parts. If you think about how we experience life, there are 4 seasons. There are 4 cardinal directions. There are the 4 primary elements. There are 4 phases of the moon. There are 4 divisions of the day, 4 states of matter. We have 4 limbs. There's 4 cavities in the human heart. There are 4 blood groups, 4 sides to the square. There are 4 symbolizes the whole and the creative process of expressing that whole. If we look at sacred scripture, it tells us even a little bit more. In the Christian tradition, there are 4 gospels in the Bible. There are 4 color horses in the book of Revelation. There are 4 corners of the earth, 4 pillars. Jesus' garment was divided into 4 pieces. The 12 tribes of Israel were divided into 4 groups. Out of the Garden of Eden or paradise, there flowed 4 rivers. There are 4 points on the cross. There are 4 types of wood in the cross. There's 4 kinds of wood in Noah's Ark. It's just found all over. In Buddhism, Buddhism has 4 truths, 4 travels the Buddha took, 4 gates. So this 4, and some interesting things, the 4th day of creation completes the material world. In the commandments, it is the 4th commandment that first refers to earthly matters. So we have the number of 3, and then you add 1. When you add 1 to that, you have 4. That's when things become physical, that the wholeness, the allness of the universe, the allness of God reveals itself just like this kaleidoscope, just like the light is experienced through all those reflections of the different and unique colors. That we are very much, we say in Unity quite often that we're like a drop in the ocean. We may not be all of the ocean, but all that we are is a constitution of the ocean. That all that makes us up has to come from all that is. And therefore, when the scriptures say we're created in the likeness and image of God, of the Creator, and that is good, in Unity we believe that we are created essentially good, that we're not born into sin, we're born whole. And yet, we're waking up to that wholeness, that we really are just asleep and waking up to that. So this 4 is very powerful in our lives, whether we're aware of it or not. It's just something that's working. And so now, the 4 elements of God revealed in you. The 4 primary elements, of course, are air, fire, water, and earth. And when we look at these 4 elements in our life, I think you'll find throughout these 4 weeks that it reveals some really powerful things about how do we harness. You know, I asked you when we started, how do you see evidence of the creative spirit operating in your life? Well, as you begin to work with air, fire, water, and earth, through its metaphysical component, it allows us to be more mindful of how the Spirit is being evidenced in our life. A couple of quotes. Pat, would you give me the first one? Just some things. That's a reminder that I forgot to welcome the new people, so please don't let me forget that later. Welcome if you're new. We'll come back to that, but we were glad you're here. Our own energy is part of a much larger continuum of vitality that sources all creation. And the regulators and transformers of that vitality, of the life energy, are the elements of air, fire, water, and earth. So today we begin the first in talking about air. Air is the power of life. Air is experienced in the body as breath. Air is experienced in the body as breath. Would you give me the next 2 scriptures? Then God formed man of the dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. The Spirit of God has made me, the breath of the Almighty gives me life. All sacred scriptures talk about breath is spirit expressing through us. So air in our body is breath. Air is evidence of life. Air, what air is to our body, inspiration is to our soul. And so what we really look at when we're looking at the properties of air, or how do we use that to help us understand inspiration? And how do we really open ourselves to greater and greater inspiration? All of us recognize great works of inspiration. We even say that. That's a great work of inspiration. How many of you know and can recall that feeling of what it feels like to be inspired? And to really be inspiring. You know, we recognize great works of inspiration in song, in art. We recognize it in great writings. We also recognize it in teaching. We recognize inspiration in cooking. We recognize inspiration in the way a person may dress or how they do certain things, that you can be inspired in any area of your life. And we truly witness that when you see a person, that the woman in the video, the reason that I really like this video is because this woman was inspired by an idea. She said, whether we like it or not, 25,000 people, refugees, are coming to our country, Canada. And if we are to do unto others as we would have them do unto us, if we are to be love, then what can we do rather than fear and judgment? And she had the idea, why don't we welcome them as we would welcome a newborn baby? Let's knit them a little hat, a wool hat, and give it to them. And so as you can see, this is spreading across Canada so that they have 25,000 toques, as they call them, or 25,000 woolen hats. Well, you may not have initiated 25,000 woolen hats, I guarantee you that when you are inspired, we see inspiration through a person, because Amy didn't just learn to play the piano and then say, all right, I'm glad I learned that. Now let me go on to something else. She learned that, she mastered it so that she could become an instrument of music, so that the music could begin to play her, so that she could become a channel for the music. And so it is in our lives and different aspects of our life. You may not be a musician or a singer or a songwriter or a teacher, but whatever you uniquely are, you know what inspiration feels like. And what we're being called is to, inspiration is evidence of the creative spirit. If a person stands up and gives a very inspiring talk, or someone does something very inspiring, we saw more than that person. It is as if they somehow got out of their way, and rather than seeing them, whatever it was they were seeking to project into the world, we saw that coming brightly and beautifully through their hands, through their voice, through their presence. That's what inspiration is. It's about turning up the fire within us that can never go out. And really being mindful about what is inspiring me. Or how am I stifling my inspiration? So there are three properties, three things about air that we can draw upon to help us open ourselves to spirit, to inspiration. The first thing that we know about air and breath is that it is evidence of a connection. In our life, when the breath stops, we say, the life, the spirit has stopped. The first thing that must happen when a baby comes into this world, it must take its own breath. That in order for us to be animated and to be here, we must have breath. And that is evidence of our connection to the life presence, the creative presence that is breathing us. And so often then, it's the most simple things that create the greatest profound change, and yet because they seem to be simple, we sometimes overlook them. But your breath is the most subtle energy that you are in contact with. It's also the most powerful. Realizing that there is evidence of a connection taking place within me with every breath. To learn to be mindful of our breath. How many of you are aware that there are times in the day you literally are holding your breath? How many are you aware that you really shallow breathe a lot? How often do we not even think about the fact for several days that we're breathing? Learning to be mindful of this beautiful spirit that is right now moving through your body, through your lungs, through every cell in your being. Allowing that to remind you that I am connected. To look out into nature. I noticed in my yard yesterday some little bulbs. I bought a house a few months ago, so I don't know what's underground. But I'm now beginning to see evidence of these bulbs, these green things sticking up through the ground, that life, that spirit is breathing that. You know, you can look around at if you really stop and take time to experience that connection, it can shift you. It opens you to inspiration. So the first thing is to realize that there is evidence of a connection at all times. The second thing about air is there must be an opening. You know, air has its own space, and we need to open to that. You can take an empty glass, turn it upside down, and quickly submerge it in water, and for just a few minutes, there's a vacuum in there. There really is something there. The water, it doesn't immediately fill up with water because the air, once it goes down, has to be released and come up as bubbles. Air really takes up space. Spirit needs space in our life. Now, in some ways, that doesn't make sense because we are spirit. So maybe I should say it as spirit needs space in our awareness. How busy is your head? Your mind, your life. I've had more and more people saying, it's just like my mind won't stop. It goes, and we live on autopilot. Several years ago, I have a niece and two nephews. They're all college age or out of college now. But my family still does this once a year. My sister, brother, their spouses, kids, my parents, we all go to one of the beaches in North Carolina. We rent a house or a condo, and we all have the joy of living together for 1 week. And several years ago when the kids were small, and especially the 2 little ones, really loved Barney. Remember that purple figure and that song, I love you, you love me, we're a happy family. And anybody else that drive crazy? So that Barney song, many of you knew that. Well, what we would do with the kids is we get up in the morning and go out on the beach, but then when it started getting really hot, we'd come in and have lunch, and the moms would say, the kids needed to take a nap and stay out of the hottest part of the day before we'd go out. So we'd have lunch, and one day I noticed the television was on, and we were all watching Barney, because that's what captured their attention. And within a few minutes, I just looked around. Every child was passed out on the floor asleep, and a whole room full of adults were just sitting there watching Barney. And I finally said, I think we can change the channel now. And everybody said, oh, yeah. And I thought about that this week, because how often do we become audience to the noise that is in front of us? How often do we just get so absorbed in whatever is going on that learning to make space, learning to create space within our own being is something that we absolutely have to do. I mean, have you ever experienced this? You go out for a walk or a jog or a hike or a long ride, and just as you reach that point of peaceful emptiness, a peaceful blankness, your mind just sort of finally gets empty. All of a sudden, the solution to a problem that you've had for a while just pops right into your head. Anybody experience that? And I've experienced that. For me, sometimes it happens when I'm in the shower. I think it's the water hitting the top of your crown chakra, and maybe because of me, I'm singing and having a good old time, that you just get enraptured in that. Everything else goes away. And then all of a sudden, something comes in, reaches you, reaches me. And we say, well, why didn't I think of that before? Well, the point is, the part of us that is doing the thinking is most likely the part of us that is getting in the way. I don't know about you, but my life journey as I continually live and grow is to stay out of my own way. And so air teaches us there's evidence of a connection, and it requires an opening. That I guarantee you, Amy did not write that song while she was listening to another song. She didn't write that song when she was talking to someone. She had to have carved out some time for it to reach her. I believe and know that Spirit is always seeking to inform us in greater ways. Emily Dickinson said, I dwell in possibility. I love that. I love carving out time where we dwell in possibility. So this principle of air, breath, remember our connection, evidence of the connection. You are evidence of that connection. And then it requires an opening. So how will you this year create more opening, create more space, more availability? We can be intentional about time to pray, to meditate. I have a friend that jogs on the treadmill 6 miles almost every day. That's her meditation. That's the way she does it. Ram Dass, I had the opportunity of meeting him. He lives on Maui. Ram Dass was telling me that when he was young and he had learned to meditate, and he would sit and meditate, and he really was sort of getting puffed up, thinking that he had sort of arrived because he had experienced some things through meditation. And he was teaching a group of people about how to be open and how to meditate, and he saw one lady in the back just smiling and nodding. And he went up to her afterwards and he said, who are you? You really seem to know a lot about meditation. And she said, oh, no, I knit. I've been knitting all my life, and I know what you're talking about because it takes me there all the time. It doesn't have to be anything that, you don't have to sit in an ashram. And as a matter of fact, if you do, at some point in time, your spirit's probably going to say, it's time to get out and get into the world and be the hands and feet of this in expression. So learning to experience that connection and create the opening. The last thing about air is a platform of exchange. With the trees, with our breath, our oxygen, what we produce, what they produce, air is a platform of exchange. You must breathe in and you must express. You cannot just do one half of that, or you're going to have a serious problem and not be around long. We have to be able to breathe in and bring out. There's a platform of exchange. Would you give me that song, Very Softly, Breathe by Karen Drucker? Several years ago, well, it hadn't been that long ago, when I lived in Washington State, my ministry before here, I found a house pretty close to the church, and I was excited to move into this little house. And just a 2-lane highway that got me to the house. And I kid you not, about 2 weeks after I moved in, a sign went up and said, new construction, 18-month construction project taking place, 6-lane highway coming. I thought, Lord, have mercy. It didn't take long at all before every day when I got out to get on that simple little highway, they were chipping up the highway. They were working. It was slowed down. There were potholes and delays. There were more potholes and more delays. There were potholes and delays and traffic. It was really annoying. And it just took a lot of extra time because I never knew what they would be doing and how long. And it took every bit of 18 months. I had the joy of living there for 2 years. So I got to finally experience the completion. But one Sunday morning, when it was finally all 6 lanes were open. And I have been thinking the whole time, why are they doing this? 2 lanes are fine. This is just ridiculous. It's nonsense. But that morning, as I got out Sunday morning, and it was not a lot of traffic, and I got on that new 6-lane highway, and I thought, wow, this is nice. They probably did this because this area is growing. And the people planning know that more traffic's going to be moving, and down there looking ahead, they know that they're going to have to move more traffic. And as my mind was thinking of that, I clearly heard that voice that speaks to me that said, Darlene, that's what I'm doing to you. You started out as a 1-way highway, and I broke you down to become a 2-way. And then I broke you down to become a 3-way. That throughout your life, just when you think things are going along just fine, I say, it's time to expand that highway. That this platform of exchange, you didn't come here just to take up space. You didn't come here just to waste oxygen. You came here because the Spirit of life brought you here. The Spirit wants to use you. You are not here just to be a knot on the log. Would you say that? I am not here to be a knot on the log. That you may be a notch in the log, whatever you were created to be, but there's something in our universe. You've noticed it this year in politics. There is a polarity that's taking place. There's lots of things that are taking place that are inviting people, asking people, what do you believe? Where are you going to stand? How are you going to be used? Are you going to walk that line and try to please everybody, or are you going to stand up and say, this is what I believe, this is what I'm here for, I'm going to be the presence of love as great as I can. That the Spirit of life is expressing through us. And so I invite you to get that white stone and the pencil, and if you don't have one, if you've come in since we started this and you need a white stone, just raise your hand. We're going to sing a song for just a moment, and then I'm going to guide you into a meditation, but a little bit about a white stone. In the book of Revelation, Unity looks at the Bible as metaphysical, beyond physical, beyond literal. It's very symbolic. It's very powerful. It teaches us how we evolve from Adam consciousness, from a consciousness that is separate and outside of God's presence, to Christ consciousness, to the Buddha consciousness, to one who is one with God, to one who's at atonement, at one-ment, an expression of all that is. And in the book of Revelation, when it's really talking about your understanding what it is to be one with God, it says, let anyone who has an ear listen. To everyone who conquers, I will give some of the hidden manna. Manna, you may remember from the story of the children of Israel, came down from heaven. Manna means I will give you some of the spiritual substance, spiritual nourishment, spiritual resources. And I will give a white stone. And on the white stone is written a new name that no one knows except the one who receives it. Prisoners, when they were released, were given a white stone as evidence of they had claimed their freedom. I will give a new name. In the scriptures, Abram went from Abram to Abraham. Sarai became Sarah. Saul became Paul. Different people's names were changed. Simon became Peter. Names represented a person's nature. And so today, what we're going to do is call forth an aspect of your nature that you are now ready to claim. That something that is ready for you to claim. And I'll guide you through this in meditation. So if you think you know what it is, take a deep breath and say, that's probably not it. Because I think I know what it is. I think so give me this song. Join me in this. I breathe in, I breathe out, I take in, I give out, I let love, I let go, I release, and I know, sing it with me, I breathe in, I breathe out, I take in, I give out, I let love, I let go, I release, and I know. Very softly. I invite you to close your eyes and to hold this stone in your hands. And to take in a breath, air. To feel your lungs expand. And when you think they're full, take in a little more. And then to release. And when you think it's all released, a little more. Spirit in. Inspirited. The word inspiration is to be in spirit. It is to be breathed upon by spirit. It is to be a clear expression of the life force. It is to have the creative impulse as the most prominent signal in your life. In a world where we're bombarded with technology and things constantly vying for our attention, we return to the breath. Say, yeah, there's evidence of a spirit within me that wants my attention. And so I create an opening. Because just as air and breath is a platform of exchange, my life is a platform, a vehicle, a vessel of exchange. The stone that you hold, the stone that I hold, comes from the Jerusalem area. An area that for centuries has been recognized as a place of sacred birth. We hold this piece of earth in our hand and first give thanks for this opportunity. We now recognize this presence and power of inspiration in our life, and that it is equally a present and available to all people. And we call upon this inspiration to be a source of guidance. And we ask ourselves, what is seeking to emerge through me? The great Eric Butterworth said, God can do no more for you than God can do through you. What is seeking to emerge through me? What is seeking to come forth by means of me? Ask for a symbol, a word, and without judgment, allow it to bubble up within you, just like air is constantly filling you. What quality of your wholeness, what attribute of your beingness is rising to the surface for you to claim it and demonstrate it in a greater way? To those who have an ear, let them listen and hear. And whatever comes up for you, write it on that stone. Don't worry that it may not be the exact right thing. Just listen for what you're hearing now and trust that. Claim it. Write it. It may be obvious through something you've been desiring, a longing. You have the right to claim what's right there in front of you, calling you. So hold on to what has come to you. And if nothing has yet come to you, write the word open on one side of the stone. And so I ask you to hold that stone in both of your hands. And consider that the left hand receives, the right hand gives. And begin to visualize energy of the universe flowing in through the crown of your head, coming up from the earth through the soles of your feet, moving all through your body, and you are receiving that, and you literally see it flowing into your left hand. And just as you see all of that life energy coming into you and flowing in, now allow your right hand to be the place where it begins to flow out. Call upon the power of imagination to see this as clearly as you can. Life energy in the top of your head flowing through your body, coming up from this great planet Earth through your feet, moving in your body, circulating through every cell. You also see it coming in very clearly to your left hand. And now just as clearly as you can see your exhale, you see that moving out through your right hand. Life requires us to be in balance, to give and receive. We cannot give any more than we have received. We cannot receive any more than we are giving. It's two expressions of the one life energy. And so we bless this stone. We bless what is being revealed to us today and what will continue to be revealed to us as we open ourselves to be a conscious, clear channel of the divine presence. We are here to be a light in the world. We are here to be a presence of healing, of love, of laughter, lifting spirit, elevating consciousness, demonstrating what we know as the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God, right here on earth. We allow the Spirit of God to flow through us, in and out. We open ourselves wide open to receive as we are ready to receive and that we can withstand. And we open ourselves equally wide open to give. In any area in our life where we feel like we're undernourished or under-inspired, we begin to give in that area, stimulating our capacity to give and to receive, reigniting that flow. And so in your own way, I invite you to give thanks for this power, this energy, this life force, that as it is in heaven, so shall it be on earth, to claim that. creative presence, which art in heaven, the unseen, the Spirit, I cannot contain you. Wholeness is your nature. I invite thy presence, thy kingdom, thy awareness to come into my life, into my earthen being. As it is in heaven, so shall it be within me. I acknowledge that you give me the manna, you give me the bread of life every day through my spirit, through my ideas, through my life. Give me this day my daily bread. And I realize the way this works is giving and receiving, and so help me to always forgive. For only to the extent that I can release and forgive and make myself open and available will I be open and available. As I forgive, I am forgiven within my own being. And I set my intention, I do not desire to go in ways of error, of evil, of confusion, of brokenness, of separation. Deliver my thoughts from that. Anytime I think that's where I can only be, remind me I dwell in wholeness. Hallowed, holy is your name. For the kingdom and the power and the glory of life is my life, and I claim this. I claim freedom to soar, and I choose to demonstrate to be inspired. I ask you to call into your conscious awareness anyone that may have asked you to hold them in prayer. Any world situation that tugs at your heart or that angers you, we offer them up in prayer. And together as we offer those names and those situations in prayer, that we may remember that the Spirit of God is never absent but is present in all people and all situations. And so if anything needs to be healed, heal it within us that we may see the truth and know the truth. And we give thanks for this. And as you give thanks in your own way, and slowly open your eyes again and feel yourself back in this room. I breathe in, I breathe out, I take in, I give